Hi, I'm Mark, and in this lesson we're going to look at how to play blues in the style of ZZ Top, particularly looking at the track Blue Jean Blues. So the way this lesson's going to work, you're going to see me play an example solo in the style of Blue Jean Blues over a backing track, and then we'll come back on the other side. I'll pull the licks apart one by one, show you how to play them. Then I'll replay the entire solo, but I'll do it at 3/4 speed with tab on screen so you can follow along. And then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll pull apart things like the techniques that Billy Gibbons uses when he plays blues, the chords, the chord progression that we're playing over here. We'll talk about improvisation. We'll talk about the actual studio recording versus how you might play this live. And we'll also talk about the guitar tones that he uses as well. So quite an in-depth look at his style, Billy Gibbons' style in this lesson. So to get started, here's the example solo. So there you just saw me play an example solo over a backing track. I will say that the way I've put this lesson together, I improvised that solo, trying to sound like Billy Gibbons and trying to use the sort of licks and notes and things that he would use. So it's improvised, and what I've then done is I've taken that and worked out what I played during that improvisation. Those are the licks I'm going to show you now. So lick 1 goes like this. Okay, so that lick, I'm actually starting it using the rhythm. We'll talk about this more later in the video, but I'm using these little kind of 3 running notes. 3rd fret, bottom E, open A string, 2nd fret A string. And that's just playing the rhythm riff, and then I'm coming in with the actual lick. So the actual lick goes like this. Okay, and I'm starting with, I'm pre-bending 9th fret G string up a whole tone and lowering it down so it becomes the 9th fret. Okay, and then once you've done that, it's 7 on the G string to back to 9 on the G string, then 9 on the D string. So that part goes like this. And then what we're doing is 7 on the G string twice, 9 on the D string. So that little piece without the 3 running notes. Okay, so that was lick 1. Lick 2 now goes like this. Okay. And what we're doing is we're running up the pentatonic scale, starting with our root note, which is 9th fret on the D string. The whole piece, by the way, is in B minor, so that's why we're here. So we're running 9th fret on the D, to 7 on the G string, to 9 on the G string, to 7 on the B string. So you're just running up the pentatonic scale if you know your pentatonic scale. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm rocking the index finger, jumping over to the top E string at the 7th fret, grabbing, so I play 7, grab 10, and bend it up a whole tone. Okay, then what we're doing is we're coming back down, we're playing 10, 7, 10, 7. So that is 10 to 7 on the top E string, then 10 on the B string, then 7 on the top E string again. Okay, and then the next few notes is 10 pulling off to 7 on the B string, 9 on the G string, back to 7 on the B string. And then the final 3 notes is 9 pulling off to 7 on the G string, and then 9 on the D string. I'll be honest, with those last 3 notes in the improvisation, I'm not 100% sure whether I picked them or pulled them off, but you can play either way. So the whole lick, nice and slow, goes like this. Okay, and in fact, here's the lick as I played it in the example. Okay, lick 3 now, and again from the example, here's lick 3. Okay, so the actual notes I'm playing here is I'm sliding into 9 on the A string before hitting 7 to 9 on the D string, and then 7 to 9 again on the G string. So far we have this. Okay, and when I get to that point, I'm then bending up on the G string and lower, kind of that pre-bend that we talked about in the first note, in the first lick, and lowering down to the 9. So I'm not picking the note as it goes, as I bend it up. I'm actually already bending it up, then picking it and lowering it down to 9. So you get this. Okay, then what we're doing, 7, 9 on the G string, then 9 on the D to 7 on the G string. So that whole section from the pre-bend goes like this. Okay, and then what I'm doing is D string, 9 to 7 to 9 on the A, and then 7 to 9 on back on the D string, and that's a hammer on. So that last few notes goes like this. Okay, so I'll put the whole lick together now, nice and slow. Okay, so they're all the notes. And what I will say about when you play this, and we'll talk about dynamics a little later, is I start the lick nice and quiet. So, but then when I get to the bend, I'm digging in and hitting hard. So you get this kind of effect. That kind of thing. So try and get that dynamics in, and then so kind of like the lick builds, it gets louder, and then once you've done that pre-bend, kind of come down in volume as well. Okay, one last time, here's how I played it actually in the solo. Okay, lick 4 now. So here's lick 4 as you'd have heard it in the solo. And the actual notes. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing 10 on the B string, bending it up a whole tone, and then what I'm doing is I'm doing a hammer on and pull off, anchoring my index finger on the 7th, hammer to 10, and then pull off again back to 7, and this is all on the B string. So we're starting with the bend, and then we're doing the hammer on and pull off, and then what we're doing is 9 on the G string, 7 on the B string. On the G string now, 9 pulling off to 7, and then landing 9 on the D string. So the whole lick put together nice and slow. Here we go, we start with the bend, and then we do the hammer on and walk, and the kind of walk down the pentatonic. Okay, so that was lick 4. Here it is again from the solo. Here's lick 5. At lick 5, we've now moved to the E minor pentatonic chord, and so what we're going to do is we're actually just going to start on the E note, which is G string 9th fret, and we're basically just going to walk up and then back down the B minor pentatonic. So we start with 9 on the G string, then 7 to 10 on the B string, and 7 to 10 pulling back off to 7 on the top E. Okay, so far we've got this. Okay, then 10 on the B string, back to 7 on the top E. Okay, so far. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go pulling off 10 to 7 on the B string before hitting 9 on the G string. And then what we're going to do is going to go 7 again on the B, finally resting on 9 on the G string. So the whole lick, nice and slow, goes like this. Okay, and to put it into context, here it is again from the solo. So lick 6 now, here it is from the solo. Okay, and the actual notes, we're going to bend 12th fret top E string, bend that up a whole tone, off to 10 on the top E, back, finally finishing on 12 on the top E. Bend, then 10 to 12 on the top E. And that's all there is to that one. Okay, lick 7 now, here it is in context. Okay, and this lick, and now we're jumping right up to the 14th fret of the G string. We're going to start by picking the 14th fret of the G string and then immediately jump over to the top E string, again 14th fret, and just walk down chromatically 14, 13 to 12 on the top E. So far we have this. Okay, then what we're going to do is 15 on the B string, back to 12 on the top E. So far we have this. And then we're going to end it by, on the B string, 15 to 12. Okay, so here it is again in context. Okay, and here is lick 8. Lick 8 is quite a long one, there's quite a bit going on. I'll take it slowly. Here is the lick in context from the main solo. Quite a bit going on there. Now what we'll do is I'll show you it again, but here it is slowed down. Okay, that should kind of help you see what's going on because the notes are kind of getting pretty fast at this point. I don't know what I was thinking, I was improvising and the notes were just kind of flying through. So I'll pull it apart, show you all the licks, all the notes one by one. We start with a bend, B string, 10, bending up to 12. Then what we're doing is we're grabbing 7 on the B string, 7 on the top E. So far we have this. Okay, then what we're doing is another pull off, 10 to 7 on the B string. Okay, then 9 on the G, back to 7 on the B. So far we've got this, we've got the bend, and then we've got this walk down. Okay, then we end kind of this little piece by going 9 on the G string. And then we're going to do our pre-bend again. So we're bending up. I think when I played this, you have to have a look at the performance, but I don't think I bent up a full tone. I just did like almost like a semitone. Little kind of pre-bend there. Okay, so the first section up to the pre-bend, let's do that again. We've got the bend. Then we get this move. Okay, and then we get the pre-bend, and as we come down off that pre-bend, we're going to pull off to 7. This is all on the G string. Okay, so we get that. Then basically there's a bit more walk down. So we're doing 9 on the D string, back to 7 on the G string, then back to the D string, and we're going to go 9 to 7, and this is just on the D string. Okay, so after we'll take it from the pre-bend, and I'll play everything up to now. Okay, then what we're doing is A string 9, D string 7, A string back to 9, D string back to 7, and hammering on to 9. So that part goes like this. Okay, so those are all the notes. Quite a lot going on in this lick. So here it is again, nice and slow, so you can hear it in context. Okay, lick 9 now, and here it is in context. Okay, and reasonably simple lick. This one, we're starting D string on the 9th fret, hitting that twice, and then immediately jumping up to 7 on the B string. And then what I'm doing is I'm doing 9 to 7. This is on the G string now, 9 to 7, and then bending it up from 9 up a whole tone. Okay, whole lick goes like this. And when you hear this in context, you'll notice the timing on this is that I'm targeting that big bend as the underlying chord change moves to the 5th chord, which in this case is the F sharp. Okay, so one last time, here it is in context. So up to lick 10, final lick, and then after this we'll talk about scales, we'll talk about techniques, tones, how you might play this live in a band, all those kind of things. So lick 10, here it is in context. Okay, so we are starting 10 to 12 on the B string, 10 on the top E to 12 on the B string. So far we have this. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to grab 12 on the top E, bend it up a whole tone, then come back 12 to 10 on the top E, so you get this. And then what we're doing is ending this, the first half of the lick, 12 on the B string. So far we've got this. Okay, now the second half of the lick, now what we're doing is we're starting again, 12 on the B string, and then what we're doing is 10 on the top E, and then 12 on the top E, and I pull that off I pull that off very quickly before immediately hitting 12 on the top E and bending it up twice. So that part goes like this. Okay, whole lick, now slowly in context. Right, so those were all the licks. What you're now going to hear is I've taken the improvisation, I've slowed it down to kind of 3/4 speed. So if you've learnt all the licks, this is a great way to kind of practice them at a slightly slow speed over the backing track. So here is the improvisation at a slightly slower speed. So that was all the licks at a slightly slower speed, so you can kind of practice along to that until you build up enough speed. Okay, so the backing track is available as a separate video on YouTube. Let me, if you see the details below, and you'll be able to find where that is. Also, if you want a copy of the tab, send me an email. Again, details in the link below. Blue Jean Blues style or ZZ Top style, call the email something like that, and I'll send a copy of the tab over to you. Okay, big thanks to Patreon supporters who've made all of this possible. And if you're enjoying this video, please drop a like, leave me a comment as well, please. Comments are really kind of encouraging. If you like the video, please let me know. Don't just watch it and then ignore it. That's really encouraging if you drop me a comment. Okay, so let's talk about what we talk about first of all. Let's talk about the actual techniques that Billy Gibbons is using in this particular solo. So as you've gone through the licks, what you'd have seen is lots of bends. Okay, there's loads of bending in this. It's a common technique in the blues. What Billy Gibbons does, and this, when I listened to the original recording, this stuck out to me, which is why I've included it in a few licks, is he does this pre-bend thing. Okay, so the first lick starts like that. Okay, and it's that. And if you listen to the original recording, he does those kind of little pre-bend things. You'll notice I made it quite a feature of lick 1. It also appeared again, I think it's in lick 8, where there's like a little pre-bend, but it's in the middle of a flurry of other notes as well. So he does those kind of things. So bending, pre-bends, if you want to sound like Billy Gibbons, that's a technique that you probably want to get down a lot. The other thing that really stuck out to me when I was researching, putting this lesson together, is dynamics. We'll talk about this when we talk about tone and the actual guitar tone he uses as well. But he goes from very, very clean to quite dirty. So he'll do those kind of things. And if you listen to the original recording, he is using a lot of dynamics. It's something that I think a lot of players overlook, but it's a brilliant way of bringing some more expression into your blues when you're kind of laying back, playing just nice and gentle. And then when you're building up to a flurry, you know, kind of dig in and go hard. And that's something that he uses a lot. When I was looking at this and doing the research for this particular lesson, that really stuck out to me. The other thing to mention is he loves minor pentatonic box position 1. In fact, from a notes point of view, he only uses, to my ears, he only used the pentatonic scale, didn't add any other notes, just the pentatonic scale. Well, except actually that lick which I took. This one is pretty much copied straight from a lick he played in the original recording. Okay, that lick, which was that was lick 7. He does do that little chromatic run. I think that's the only time I heard him, use a note from outside the pentatonic. That's the blues note. So it's the flat 5. But otherwise, if you're trying to sound like Billy Gibbons, it's definitely minor pentatonic. He loves box position 1. You'll see in the example solo, and if you look at the original recordings, he occasionally gets into box position 2 and up to box position 3, but so much of what he's doing is around box position 1. So that's kind of, if you want to sound like him, that's kind of where I would aim for. Okay, let's talk about the actual chord progression. So I'll put it on screen so you can see it. It's a blues. It's a fairly standard blues in B minor, except it's only 10 bars long, not 12 bars long. That's quite an interesting thing about this particular song. So we get the B minor chord. Does that little bass run. You'll notice in the song that he often doubles the bass line to make that little riff. So we basically get, what do we get? 4 bars of B minor, 2 bars of E minor, back to B minor for 2 bars, and then you'll play like an F sharp power chord. before going back to the B minor. Okay, so interesting, the slight departure from the 12-bar blues, but it still sounds a lot like a 12-bar blues. Right, so let's talk about improvisation now. Looking at this record, looking at how he plays it live, I'm pretty much convinced that the solos on the record were improvised. He certainly, every time he plays the song live now, he plays it differently, so I'm inclined to think that it's improvised, and that's why I improvised my particular solo, the example that you've learned, because I wanted to kind of get that feel. I thought if I actually composed something, it wouldn't quite get the same feel as the original. So that's why I did it. If I was going to play this in a band, I would keep that up. I would go with the improvisation. I wouldn't try and write a solo, compose solo or anything. There are actually 3 different solos in the record. There's a few licks to open the record with. Then there's an early solo, and then there's a main solo later on as well. And he does just seem to improvise the whole thing. So if I was playing that in a band, I would do that. What's interesting when you listen to the original recording is that the rhythm guitar part clearly sounds like that's recorded as a separate track, and the licks are kind of laid on top. When he plays it live, because he's only in a 3-piece, he tends to do both parts. So he'll play the riff, then he'll play a lick, then he'll go back to the riff, or wherever licks he's playing, and he tends to kind of play riff, lick, riff, lick. Certainly in the opening solo and the first solo. When he's getting into the bigger solo later on, I tend to think that he kind of just ignores the rhythm and just goes for the soloing. But if I was playing this in a band, if I didn't have another guitar player, I would certainly do that. Certainly for the intro solo, and the first solo is play riff, lick, etc. If I was playing with another guitar player in the band, or even a piano player or something else, I probably would just focus on playing the licks. Okay, but that's an interesting difference between the recording and how he does it live. Okay, and finally, let's talk about actual guitar tone here. So I found that for me, with the guitars I own, the Les Paul was the one that kind of got me closest. I'm using the in-between position, or the guitar's turned all the way up. But on the amp, I've turned the gain down far lower than what I'd normally use, so that when you just kind of play a little normally, or slightly lighter than normal, it's almost completely clean. There's hardly any grit in there. So I've got the dirty channel of my Blackstar HT5, but I've got the gain turned down, I've got the reverb up, so that when you dig in, you get that grit. He seems to be playing with it on the original recording. He seems to be playing with the amp kind of set in that way, so that when you dig in, you get the grit, and when you pull back, you get it completely clean. What I will say is on live recordings, he seems to use a lot more gain. He doesn't have that real clean edge to the sound, but you can experiment however you want. That's how I found it best to get closest to the original recording, to be just on that point of breakup where if you dig in, it suddenly goes quite growly, rather than being completely clean. Other than that, the other thing to say is on the recording, the first 2 solos, well, in fact, for all 3 solos, he doesn't change the amount of gain or anything in the amp. He's not suddenly jumping over to the dirty channel or anything. The amp sounds like it's pretty much set the same way all the way through. But what he does do on the 3rd solo is there is some amount of delay or echo on there. Now, I don't know whether he jumped on a pedal for the main solo to add that delay, or whether it was added later on in the mix or whatever. I'm not sure, but it does give it a slightly different sound than the first solo. The fact that there's this slight echo in there. When I've done the recording, I haven't used any pedals. My pedals are all switched off. There's no delay, there's no anything. I'm just going straight into the amp with the gain dialed back quite a bit, as I say, less than I would normally use. Okay, that was quite an in-depth lesson, longer than usual, and this one took quite a bit of research. I will put another video on the Patreon site to talk a little bit more about how some of the difficulties in trying to sound like Billy Gibbons and some of the research I had to do. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave us a thumbs up and a like and a comment and things, and I'll see you again.